P.O.P podcast, let's go. The P.O.P podcast, let's go. The P.O.P podcast starts now.
Hello and welcome to the P.O.P podcast. I'm Jason Sirotin, joined by my co-host Scott Haley. And today we have such an exciting episode because we're doing something a little different. We have we're doing something a little different. We have Jeremy Daniel on the show. Jeremy is with Color Code Training. You can go to colorcodetraining.com, and we're going to be talking about personalities today. And Jeremy has a really unique system for working with personalities. So Jeremy, first of all, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. Scott, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Good to see you and good to be back here. Jeremy, thanks for taking the time to chat with us for a little bit today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. As you know, Scott, I'm a yellow like you, so this is just fun.
Right.
So,
I'm
Scott,
not stressed out about anything. Just like I'm not worried about anything.
It'll be great. Let's just do it.
Scott, you seem so excited about this when we first started talking about having Jeremy on the show. What gets you excited about what Jeremy does?
Well, first of all, he was an incredibly engaging speaker at our meeting. I think what he has to offer is great for culture and orthodontic offices. But for me and my family, what he taught us or taught me, but also going through the color code assessment, it's like that's all we talk about now, right? Like we talk about my wife's a blue, very blue, I'm very yellow. And it's helped us, manage our families, but it also, even within our group of P.O.P, the doctors I'm dealing with, me understanding their colors actually has helped me become a better collaborator and coworker. So I think there's a ton of value here. It's really interesting, and Jeremy presents it in a very entertaining way.
How did you guys meet?
Well, we met through Dr. Horsley, right? Is that right, Jeremy?
I think so. Yeah, it might have been Dixie that made the introduction, but it was through P.O.P for sure.
Yeah, and Jeremy, you've done some work with Dr. Horsley's offices, and then that came to, hey, this guy would be a great speaker at our annual meeting.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's interesting because it's not typical for the kinds of events that I do, but it was a lot of fun. So even working with Horsley Orthodontics over the years, I've actually worked with them several times over the years. And I've worked with other orthodontics practices here and there, but I think they have mostly been referral based kinds of things. And I'm guessing that a lot of that probably traces back to Dr. Horsley. And so I would say that orthodontics really hadn't been on my radar by and large. I work with a lot of tech companies. I work with a lot of pharmaceutical companies. I've been doing this for 25 years in all kinds of different areas. Orthodontics wasn't really very much on my radar until we started talking about P.O.P, and the invitation came to speak at the P.O.P annual meeting in January back in Park City. And man, I'm really, really excited about orthodontics now.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great group of people to work with for sure. Well, let's get into it. I want to understand what it is that you do. Where do we start with understanding what color code training is?
Great question. So, I think where we start is with relationships. All life is about relationships. That's one of the things that we talk about over and over and over here at Color Code. And relationships really build into the culture of whatever environment that you're in. And this is actually why I'm really loving orthodontics, because you have the type of business where you can't do it virtually. A lot of my clients, they're doing stuff that's virtual, and we get together once every quarter or once every 6 months or something along those lines. But what I love about an orthodontics office is you have real people coming together every single day. You've got to engage with patients as they're coming through the door. You've got to engage with each other. You've got to communicate. And the way that you build culture, if it's centered around relationships and people, it really helps you elevate those relationships and build the kind of culture that people are excited about. If you can build the kind of culture where people are excited about coming to work every day, as opposed to work being somewhere that they have to go every day, then you're going to win on so many fronts. So that's where we start. We start with relationships. I use an acronym to teach culture building in general. It's ethos, which is the Greek word for culture. And the E really stands for elevating your relationships. And so we typically start with the color code. We have people take the color code personality assessment in advance. And then we conduct some kind of a learning session where people can learn that, your coworkers are either reds, blues, whites, or yellows in our system. We learn about the personality types, what makes them tick, why they do what they do, how to communicate with them, how to collaborate with them. And you can get into lots of advanced applications where it comes to sales, for your treatment coordinators or customer service. There are a lot of things that you can do with it, but it really starts with understanding that framework of why people do what they do. How are they built, and what that allows you to do differently to build more communication and better culture.
Now, people might be familiar with like Myers-Briggs and 16personalities.com and stuff like that. How is your system different? What is unique about it? And how do you implement it into organizations?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. Here are two things that are different. I'm gonna give you like the one that clients tell me first, because I think that's probably what matters at the end of the day. And then I'll give you the more academic reason too. The one that I sort of get excited about, but honestly, I've learned over the years that people don't care about it as much. I think the big difference in terms of a client's perspective and application is that the color code is very simple. Like you hear it, you get it, you can digest it. Scott's talking about it with his family. And they weren't all there at the meeting, right? But to be able to share it and to invite people to take the assessment and know instantly what that means and how it translates into actual application, I think is really the magic power of the color code from a client's perspective. Now, the more academic answer on that and why I get excited is, you look at a Myers-Briggs or a 16 personalities or a DISC or a Strengths Finders or the Harry Potter sorting hat quiz. I mean, there's like a million personality assessments out there, right? And most of the personality assessments that I've ever experienced in my 25 plus years doing this, most of those assessments are based on behavior. They're really all about what you do. And they'll look at your behavioral patterns and then put you into a personality classification. And the color code actually is not about what you do. It's about why you do it. So we really speak to your why, to your motive. And if you understand kind of what lies below the surface of behavior, that's when you can really make true connections with people.
Yeah. And I think the way that you've put it together, because you hear people be like, I'm an ENFTJ. And then like to be like, well, I'm a red. I'm a blue. That's a much more simpler way to communicate. So that just makes sense. I really like that. When you go into an organization, how does an engagement work? If somebody's like, I think I could benefit from a culture shift or a change, sea change, what does an engagement look like?
Well, I'll tell you, it varies from client to client, industry to industry. One thing that we're doing right now for P.O.P members, which I'm excited about, is we're actually offering a free virtual team building session, which we don't do anywhere else. We actually charge for those sessions, but for P.O.P members, you can actually set up a free team building session. We can have your team take the assessment in advance, just like we would any normal engagement. And then we can jump on via Zoom and actually present a 60 to 75 minute workshop to the whole team where they can learn about themselves. They can learn about their personalities and how to start implementing the program. So that's the first thing that they can do. And people can find that information. If you just go to colorcodetraining.com/POP, that's where you would find a video kind of explaining what that offering is. And you can fill out a form if you want your practice to take the assessment, to actually host one of these virtual sessions. There it is right there. Yeah. colorcodetraining.com/POP. And you get in there, you answer a few questions about your practice, and we set up a free virtual session. It's totally free. I've got my first few set up actually coming up this week. We're working with MP Orthodontics out in Texas, and then we got a few more set up after that. But that's the way that you could start as an orthodontist. Other groups, the engagements kind of vary. It might start with a big keynote presentation, and then it turns into something where, there are monthly meetings that we host, and it can get really involved. My goal for orthodontics is, hey, can we keep this super, super simple and put some tools into your hands that you can use literally on a daily basis without a whole lot of cost? And I think that if you can practice this daily, you will improve your culture. You'll start more patients. You're going to have less drama on the team. And I know that's always an issue, right? Is like, when you put 10, 15, 20 people in a room together all day, every day, sometimes you experience some of that drama, and that's headache that you've got to take home after work. And you're always worried about that. What if you could just get back to doing what you want to do in the first place, which is, making beautiful smiles, take the drama out of the team building side of it and just create great culture.
Yeah, very cool. You know what I love, like you said, you nailed it, right? Like by the way, this was my second round of the color code because we implemented it or had training when I was in corporate America. And, but then also had this event here with P.O.P, and I thought it was really valuable. I think what's interesting, maybe, besides the entertainment of me and my wife talking about what we are and then being able to think in terms of what our kids might be, which that's going to be our Christmas gift this year, by the way, Jeremy, is we're going to have all our kids and their spouses take the color code. But with that being said, I thought it was really interesting how the assessment, it kind of freaks you out because the assessment is having you dig into your memories as a child, right? Essentially, that's how and it makes so much sense because that is really that's who we are at our core to some degree. Is that kind of the idea behind it, Jeremy? Like,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You're right on with that, Scott. So going back to the methodology and the why versus the what, we actually believe that everybody has a driving core motive that forms the foundation of their personality. So your why, or your driving core motive. And so in the color code, we use red, blue, white, and yellow as the names. To your point, Justin, it's just so much, or Jason, it makes it so much easier to say I'm a red, blue, white, or yellow than an ENTJ or whatever else, right? So the language is really easy, but we actually believe that you have that driving core motive innately present at birth, intact. And so when we ask you to answer the questions, we do ask you to answer the questions based on the earliest recollections that you have of yourself as a child, so that we can strip away all of the learned behavior, or at least as much of the learned behavior as possible. We're trying to find that piece of your personality that's more nature than nurture. And so that's why we ask people to take it in that way. And that always creates a lot of questions. Like I almost always start my workshops by asking people if they thought that was weird, actually, that we ask you to answer the questions based on what you're like as a child, because most people would say, and maybe Scott, you felt this way. Most people would say, like, this is kind of interesting because I'm different today than I was as a child. Did you have that experience at all?
Yeah, I think I wasn't a very, and I would say this for my wife as well. I mean, it was like, it's a little hard to look back at yourself as a kid, especially if you're yellow, because you might not have liked, as a responsible adult right now, it's hard to look back in the mirror and go like, I was a little chaotic, right? So, but yes, I mean, but there's so much of it that resonated with me too, right? Because I think as an adult, I'm working hard against some of the things that are my nature in a lot of ways too. So it was really, really important for me to do that and see those insights.
You bring up a great point also, in that, behaviorally we can change over time. It's just so helpful to understand the nature first, the why first, and then you can build behavior. So it's not like you're locked in to what you were like as a child. We all look back and we go, oh yeah, like I've come a long way. And that's ideally what should happen for everybody. But we do feel like it's so much more accurate and clear if you start with that hardwiring and then build character from there.
Do you think that that there's an opportunity for people to have false senses of what they were and who they were in the past? Does that ever get in the way? Or do you think
Sure.
people, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes, and there are some circumstances that we have to work with a little bit differently. So, for example, if somebody had a rough childhood, if they had an abusive childhood, and going back and answering the questions based on what you were like as a child, kind of takes you back to that place, as opposed to which is something that was maybe more forced or controlled and not really indicative of who you actually are. We would actually have people answer the questions a little bit differently. Fortunately, that's not the norm. That's more the exception, but there are things, and there are other things that can impact the way that you see yourself as well. I was working with a team. Here's an example. This is kind of a fun example. I was working with this team we were in Toledo, Ohio, and the balmy metropolis of Toledo, Ohio in February or something like that. And this team was taking the assessment in advance of our workshop, and there were maybe 12 or 15 people on the team. And every single one of those people reached out to me via email or via phone call. And they were like, Jeremy, we have an issue. And I'm like, okay, what's the issue? And they're like, Eric is the issue. Eric is telling everybody that he's a yellow. He's so not yellow. He's super, super red. And I know you don't know what that means yet. We can talk about that a little bit, but everybody's like, no. There's no way this guy is a yellow. He's super red. So of course we get to the session and I'm like, Eric, tell us what's going on. Like everybody sees you as being a red and you came out really high yellow, like really, really high. And he just started laughing and he goes, guys, I was a military officer for 20 years before I took this job. Don't you think that taught me to approach things in a different way? So his training, his learning from all of that military experience translated into the way that he would attack objectives and really take things on and drive results. But it didn't change his core motive. In fact, he said, like, that's how I get things done. But at the end of the day, if it's not fun, which is the yellow, coming back to the yellow, if it's not fun, I'm out. I don't want to have any part of this. And it became very apparent along the course of the workshop that was actually true. So your life experiences, your environment, the way that you were parented, birth order, there are a lot of things that can really shift the way that you perceive yourself and the way that other people perceive you as well. We call them filters. And we always emphasize that those things don't really change your driving core motive. They don't change who you are, but they might make it a little bit harder for you to see what your nature is. And they might make it harder for other people to see that as well.
I don't think he'd mind us sharing this, but could you maybe talk a little bit? And I think it's appropriate because of the industry, but could you talk a little bit about how you've engaged with Horsley Orthodontics over the years? I mean, in terms of like, what's the kind of, what's that extended relationship with you look like in an orthodontic practice from your standpoint?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking. With Horsley over the years, we've done a number of in-person workshops, which are available. We can do those as well. They cost a little more money. They take a little more time. But Dr. Horsley and his practice, they're really good at building in regular intervals for team retreats, team communication, team building activities, growth. And that's the way that really anybody, now you might not be able to do it on the level of Horsley Orthodontics just yet, but anybody can engage in regular activities. That's really the H in ethos, is honing your culture. What are you doing on a regular basis to really make those improvements, even small incremental improvements? But with Horsley over the years, we've done engagements where we've come in, we've had everybody take the color code assessment, and we've utilized it to really help them get to know each other. So why do we do what we do? How do we communicate with each other better? What are the needs and wants that we can't see? So for example, if somebody is a red, right, they need to look good technically. They need to look good academically. If they're embarrassed by something, it is like so hard for them to rebound from that. But everybody's a little different. Like blues, they need to look good more. They need to be good morally. So instead of looking good technically, they actually want to do the right thing. It's so ingrained in who they are. And if they're asked to do something that pushes them out of that a little bit, where they're saying like, well, we need to do this for the bottom line, and it's maybe not the best way to serve the patient. A blue is going to really have a hard time with that. Whereas, a yellow wants to look good socially, not necessarily academically. And a white wants to just feel contented, and they don't necessarily need all the same social interaction as everybody else. So with Horsley, there have been times where we've taken a deeper dive into just the dynamics of what are happening underneath the surface to, number one, build more understanding of ourselves and of other people, and two, to increase levels of trust and even taking accountability for the work that they do in their practice. And they've been so good at reinforcing that over time. We've also done some things where we've focused a little bit more on application towards patients. So you can take the color code and you could use it in a sales environment. In fact, that's one of the most common ways that we apply this in the corporate world. People will bring us in. In fact, I'm working with a sales team in Orlando in a couple of weeks, and they want to know, like, how do I read somebody's personality style when I first meet them without the aid of the assessment? Because you can't always just say, hey, before we talk, can you answer these 45 questions so that I know how to sell stuff to you? You can't really do that. So it's like, what are the quick coding sort of tips that you can share? And then how do you understand, if a red patient, a blue or a white or a yellow patient come in, what are the things that are important to them? You already know they want braces, but speaking to them in a way that the red will resonate, or the blue or the white or the yellow, it could make the biggest difference between whether that patient actually starts or whether they don't. So we've done some of that kind of thing with Horsley as well. I'm trying to think of what else. The last time that we worked together, it was more of a team building kind of event, and we leaned into the idea of being 100%. We leaned into the idea of being 100% responsible for the success of your relationships, whether that be with team members or with patients or other people in your life. So there are lots of little nuanced applications that we've kind of explored a little bit with Horsley.
That's awesome.
I think we've went long enough now. We've teased it out where we can tell the audience what these colors mean.
That's a great point. We're probably ready.
Yeah. So let's do it. Can you give us a little class on your color theory, if you will?
Sure. Yeah. So again, this is all about why people do what they do. So much more significant than understanding the what. So we use the 4 colors: red, blue, white, and yellow. Reds, I'm going to give you the motives for each so we can understand what those driving core motives are. Reds are motivated by power, which means they want the ability to move from point A to point B in the quickest, most efficient way possible, period. So think about the red docs that are out there, right? It's all about getting through school, getting established, setting up the practice, and they're very much, they're not going to wait around and see what happens. They're not reactive. They're very proactive people typically. They see a problem, they want to solve it right away. And they tend to do that quickly and efficiently. So they speak directly. They're very motivated. They're very focused. Now, every color has wonderful strengths and every color has some challenging limitations as well. So some of the limitations of a red might be that they're so direct that they come across as being insensitive, or they come across as being arrogant when their confidence goes a little too far, right? And so sometimes we do things that maybe are born of strengths even, but taken to an extreme can become a limitation. So it's very helpful to know when that's coming across, because you might actually offend somebody unintentionally on your way to point B if you're a red. And the other colors have their own challenges as well. So that's red, A to B in the quickest, most efficient way possible, period. Then you have the blues. Blues are motivated by intimacy. And intimacy in our definition means they want to connect with people on a deep and meaningful level. If you ask anybody with a blue personality style how many friends they have, the first thing they do, they start to think about it, and they're wondering like, well, what do you mean? Do you mean like friends? Do you mean like acquaintances? Do you mean like what it says on Facebook? Like, they're trying to figure out what I mean by even asking that question. And if I let them stew on it for a little bit, they'll usually say, I can count my friends on one hand. Like, I have 3 friends, right? Like true friends to the bitter end kind of people, my soulmate friends, I have 3, because they want to connect on a deep and meaningful level. You can't have the level of depth and meaning that a blue wants with every single person in your practice or every single person in your life. There's usually a handful of people that you're able to go to that depth with, and that's very motivating for a blue. So they are wonderful at just being thoughtful. They care about people. They care about relationships. They are very purposeful in the way that they do things. They're very detailed in the way that they do things. They want to make sure that everything is accurate. On the other hand, they can take some of those things too far, right? Detail orientation taken to an extreme maybe starts to look like perfectionism. That could be something that they struggle with. They can struggle with being maybe emotionally too intense at times, or having unrealistic expectations of other people because they set the bar so high because quality is so important to them. So again, and I was talking to a doctor just today, actually this morning, and he was saying that his team members, they know he's a blue. And one of their big pieces of feedback for him was, you come in and you talk to the patient after we've just talked to the patient and we've just explained everything. And then you come in and you re-explain the whole thing all over again. And he was saying like, that. Yeah, but I'm blue. And I just want to make sure that they have all the details. They have all the information. I have to know, or else I can't sleep at night. So that's a good description, a beginning description of what a blue personality style is like. Then you have the whites. The white personality style is motivated by peace. And peace is much deeper than just the absence of conflict for somebody with this style. And that tends to be where our minds go. It's like, oh yeah, peace means that we don't fight. Well, it's actually deeper. For somebody with a white personality style, peace means they're looking for a sense of inner harmony and balance. Ultimately. So even when things are crazy and chaotic around them, which they definitely can be in an orthodontics practice on any given day, people coming and going, you're trying to troubleshoot problems that are coming up. You're trying to work with your patients and you've got these staff issues at the same time. They're all happening. Somebody with a white personality style, they want to just be able to be calm, even in the midst of all that chaos and conflict, calm in the midst of the storm, essentially. And some of their great qualities, they're very adaptable people. They're very accepting of others. They are non-judgmental. They're the least judgmental of all four colors. They're fantastic listeners. They tend to be a little bit more introverted, so they don't speak up a lot. And when that happens, people will make incorrect assumptions about where they're really actually coming from. And so that can be hard. They probably need to up their communication game a little bit. They tend to not love conflict. And so sometimes when they talk or when they give their opinion, you don't get their full opinion because they don't necessarily want to create an issue where there might be a fight or there might be some conflict. They can be a little bit more timid. So those are some strengths and limitations for the white personality style. Then you have the yellows, last but not least. And yellows are motivated by fun. And fun really is also kind of misunderstood a little bit. It doesn't mean that they just want to be messing around the whole time. Like fun means that they want to live in the moment and that they actually enjoy the process of what they're doing, sometimes even more than the results. So Dr. Horsley is actually a yellow. Right. So he's fun, he's a fun loving person. And, you get that sense, obviously, like through his training and his organization and his practice building skills, like you see a lot of the other traits from the other colors come through. But at the end of the day, it's going to be fun when you're working with Brian Horsley. Yellows can be, really, spontaneous people. They tend to be very happy people. They wake up every day, like happiness is a choice. They're like, oh, you're sad. Well, you should just choose to be happy. Like that ever worked for anybody who's not a yellow, right? But yellows kind of think that you can do that. On the downside, like they can be impulsive. They can be afraid to face facts. Sometimes they're disorganized. They love organization. They just don't necessarily know how to create it really well. But that's a good example of where you could use somebody with a different personality style to backfill for some of the things that you might struggle with. And any great team, any great practice is going to have people with different skill sets and different personalities that can help each other. The big key is, can we view our differences as really our superpower and not our kryptonite, right? Like sometimes differences can just drive us crazy and they can be the source of drama and complaint and all of those kinds of things. But really the differences are our greatest opportunity to become the best team that we can be, because we all bring different perspectives to the table.
Incredible. All right. I got one last question. I'm going to put you on the spot. So when you look at the general population of all these businesses you've worked with over your 23-year career, do you think the orthodontists follow a different, higher percentage of certain colors versus most of the businesses that you deal with, or the people that you've assessed over the years? Or is it they're just the same?
That's a really great question. On the orthodontists themselves, you know what we should do, Scott? We should actually pull up the results from the P.O.P meeting and just see P.O.P members, because we have a number of people. We probably have over 100 people that took the color code assessment, just the docs, and just to see what that breakdown looks like, because I did meet people with red, blue, white, and yellow personality styles at that meeting. But I will tell you for sure with staff, I can tell you this with a high degree of confidence, that I would bet that the staffing in most practices is going to lean a little bit more heavily towards blue. Not because a red, blue, or white or yellow can't do that job. Any color can do any job. But certain types of things appeal to certain types of people. And so working in a medical environment, whether that's orthodontics, dentistry, hospitals, we tend to see a lot of blues in those situations. Now, the general population is about 35% blue. I think that's probably a little bit skewed when you look at the makeup of your typical orthodontics practice.
Very interesting. Very good. Incredible. If you haven't gotten something out of this today, I really encourage people to reach out to Jeremy and reach out to P.O.P, and we can connect you with him as well. It was just, I've seen the impact that it's had on some of our practices. And I think culture is such a big thing, right? Like staff turnover is a big thing. And you see it when you see it done well in a practice where everybody's clicking together and getting along, it just sticks out like a sore thumb.
I want everybody right now to go to colorcodetraining.com, and you're going to go there and you can get that virtual training session. If you want to go to colorcodetraining.com/pop, that's where you can get that very exclusive, incredibly generous offer from Jeremy to have that a run through of your team, free. Jeremy, just break it down one more time. I feel like I'm doing a disservice with my sales approach here.
Oh, it's great. No, I appreciate it. Yeah, no, I think any P.O.P member, we're doing this for free. Go to colorcodetraining.com/pop. And there's a short video that explains the process. There's a little form that you fill out and tell us a little bit about your practice. This is 100% free. We'll do a 60 to 75-minute session with you and your staff conducted virtually via Zoom. So you just gather together wherever you are. It doesn't matter if you have 6 people in your practice or if you have 50 people in your practice. We can do this virtually and have it be a fantastic, fun, engaging kind of experience where people will continue to talk about it for months to come, maybe even years to come after the program is over, because it makes relationships so simple. So again, it's totally free. colorcodetraining.com/pop. Just fill out the form. We'll book a 15-minute call with you so that we can schedule the event. And on that call, we'll talk through, hey, how do you get your people to take the personality assessments? We'll send you a link for that and that kind of thing. So we make it really, really easy. But the first step would be to go to colorcodetraining.com/pop.
Yeah, and you have nothing to lose and everything to gain. It's free, and it's the information you can take with you. So even if you don't sign up for other services, you're getting some value, and you can build a relationship with Jeremy and the Color Code Training team. So thank you very much, Jeremy. I want to go over to Scott and the gang at P.O.P. Make sure you go over to P.O.P. If you want to get with Scott and the team, go to the schedule and intake. Scott, what's going to happen when they go to the site and schedule a call with you?
Yeah, you're going to jump on my Calendly link. Your name will pop up on my calendar, and you and I are going to visit for, 20, 30 minutes. Love to learn about you and your practice, share all the cool things that we're doing at P.O.P. Things like, we're much more than a buying group. But I understand that's why the calls come in. People want to understand the vendors that we have in place, but really we're doing so much more. We're doing things like what Jeremy's doing with our doctors. We have practice management events, doctor networking opportunities, and great business services relationships like what we have with you guys here at Brain Bites Creative as well.
And it's an elite group of doctors. I mean, these are if you want to get pearls, if you want to meet, your next mentor or your next best friend, these guys and gals are incredible people. So make sure you go to pop-ortho.com and schedule an intake call. And finally, if you are in need of marketing in your orthodontic practice and you want more starts, make sure you go to brainbitescreative.com, click the contact us button, send a message out that you'd like a free consultation. We'll do a free analysis on your website. Caroline will make sure that we look at social, your SEO, and everything. We really appreciate you giving them a call. brainbitescreative.com. On behalf of Pop and the Pop Podcast, I'm Jason Sirotin, and we will see you next time.
P.O.P. podcast. It's good.